enter this arena. It is a competition enter. He's the son of Eve from Borgia. With his garments dipped in blood. All I know is that Jordan River
In Search of History explores a family whose evil deeds sent shockwaves through Renaissance Rome. Uncover a saga filled with poison, incest, and murder, bound in ties of blood. Century Rome, at the very height of the Italian Renaissance. A flowering of all the arts, painting, architecture, sculpture, music, and literature. A time when men of immense talent, such as Da Vinci and Michelangelo, gave voice to a glorious new celebration of the human spirit. One family would come to dominate the cultural life of this era. Yet strangely, this very family, which would underwrite some of the world's great art, was also one of the most evil and secretive in history.
The Borgia family has become the arch symbol of treachery, of decadence, of violence, of assassination, of carnal lust, of every manner of moral turpitude we can think of.
Shalom, this is Tzipora Ibrahim, editor-in-chief of artisticministry.net, and I am doing another episode. This will be episode 45 for this fiery trial. And if you've been following along, then you know that the reason there are so many episodes all of a sudden is because I decided to look at this holiday season and what it really means for us as empowered individuals who are trying to walk out this trial, to endure this trial that we are being subjected to. And this is a time that's really, it's a serious time for us, because we know that, well, some of us know, and what I'm trying to share through this podcast is, at this point, we are in what is called the holiday season. It is, for the unsuspecting, this is to be a happy time. This is where there's fun, there's revelry, there's celebrations. It's a time to be with family and friends. There's gift giving, there's merrymaking, and on the quote unquote religious side, specifically for December, we are coming upon what is called Christmas. And yet, when you scratch the surface of this, you understand that the surface is really not accurate in terms of having us believe that we are celebrating the birth of the Son of the Most High, Yahushua HaMashiach, Yahushua the Messiah, who the world mistakenly calls Jesus Christ. And that's not what really is happening. We know that there's no way, just logic tells us that the Messiah was not born on December 25th. And in the last episode that I just uploaded, I shared with you clips on just some of the research that I've done in looking at why there is so much emphasis put on that particular day, the 25th of December, and how just throughout historically, how that has been the supposed birth date of many pagan deities, from the Greeks, Apollo, Helios, to the Egyptian god Horus, to I want to say that the Persian god Mithra, to even Baal, the Canaanite deity, various deities in several cultures throughout the ancient world chose that particular day. And it has pagan influence. There's paganism behind this. And what I've also made very clear, or I'm trying to make clear, is that paganism, what is at the foundation, the core of paganism, is Satanism. And so what we're looking at is the fact that December 25th, we're dealing with a satanic holiday. Okay, or holiday. That's really what's happening. And why this is important for us as victims of a highly organized and sophisticated program of control, of punishment, of touchless torture, is we know that there is a satanic element. There is a spiritual satanic element to this program where we deal with spiritual attacks. We deal with a satanic violation on a regular basis. It can be just as equally devastating and dangerous as the military weapons that are used against many of us. It can be just as frustrating and frightening and worrisome as the other tactics that make up this program. The home invasion, the street theater, the mimicry, the synchronicity, the color coding, the brightening, all of it. It is the spiritual component can be just as troublesome and problematic and frightening and worrisome as those other parts. Now, where this is important for us to look at specifically for this holiday season is that anyone who starts to do any research into some of what is at the core of Satanism, when you're dealing with like witchcraft, there is what I've learned, at least this is what I've learned, and I've heard it repeated by many people, so I'm of the conclusion that my research is correct, and that is that for most of this, for a hefty percentage of these witchcraft attacks and spells to work, that there has to be some type of an agreement between the victim and the perpetrator. Meaning somebody just can't randomly go up to a stranger who they don't know, who they've never had any type of contact with, and wouldn't even know their name, and just start randomly putting curses on them, and they're all of a sudden suffering strange maladies and, being tormented at night, and it doesn't work that way. There has to be an agreement. We know that the Most High, Yahuwah, is the creator of all. He is the creator of the spirit realm. He is the creator of the physical realm. He is the master of hosts, and we know that his son is master of hosts in his name. And the Most High has laws. He's the Almighty Creator. We know that He is just, that He is merciful, that He is not the author of confusion, but He is the author of order and wisdom and righteousness and justice. So there's no way that He's going to allow give anyone the ability to just randomly come up and torment and torture someone on that level, especially when you consider the depth of destruction that you can cause in someone's life behind that. You just can't do that randomly to whoever, whenever you want to. They speak of if you listen to some of the episode that I titled Satanic Confessions, there is a few audio clips between a woman, Mary Lake, and the talk show host that is for that episode they did on a channel, Now You See TV, but they spoke about legal rights. There has to be a reason, there has to be a legal permission, legal right in order for these types of attacks and such to take place. And what happens is that when we participate, when we go into the territory, or as I've been saying, the playground of these witches and these warlocks, and start running their crooked mile and wearing their crooked smile and playing in their sandbox and using their toys and being in their territory, well then basically we're opening ourselves up to them, and they have the legal right to attack us. There is a legal precedence for those attacks and those curses and those spells to work. So for us, in terms of looking at this in terms of specifically Christmas, which is coming up, we know, as I've been sharing in these past 2 episodes, that the celebration of this holiday, the use of the symbols like the Christmas tree and the wreath and the mistletoe, doing all of this, bringing those items into our homes, these pagan objects, and going to their celebrations, going to these church services, and eating these foods and being involved in these activities with them. Basically, we are coming into agreement with them. And again, use the word agreement, or you can use the phrase legal right. But if you come into agreement, well, then they're able to act out or cast these spells, and they work because you've opened up the door and allowed them to do so. Okay, and so what we need to do is close those doors, is not have anything to do with them. And I know that, speaking for myself in past experiences, and for many of us, there is the isolation that we have to deal with. And for many of us, especially during this time period when there is such emphasis put on celebrations and parties and family unity and gift giving and gift exchanges, that vulnerability, that need, that desire, that ache to be included, to be a part of the celebration, to be with friends and family at this time of year, which is when it's encouraged. We are encouraged to do that in many in just many areas of our lives, we're encouraged to take this time to use these quote unquote this holiday season to spend time with family and friends. And yet we know that for many of us that's dangerous, because there are many of us who have family members who are a part of the gang-stalking. They have been either they're the cause of it, maybe they're orchestrating the targeting that we're dealing with, or they have been tricked through gaslighting, through out and out lies, through defamation of character, to believe whatever our stalkers and perpetrators tell them. So they are maybe so offended and upset by something that they've been told that we're doing or that we've done that they agree, and they sometimes join in and participate in the attacks and the assaults. And so we can't allow ourselves to be exposed to them for that very reason. And so now you add on top of that, here it is, the Christmas season, where we're everywhere around you. You're being encouraged to go to parties and to hang out with friends and accept gifts and to give gifts. Well, if you accept a gift from one of these satanic cray-crays, you've come into agreement with something. And who knows what the gift really is. You trust me on this one. I've had many experiences of that and that nature, where I didn't even understand what was going on. I would accept gifts from people, and I can remember one of the very first time where something like this happened. This is when I first came back to California. I was living in Frisco, and this woman, she was there were two of them. They were just really friendly and really being nice. And I told them a little bit about my experience, that I had, come there. I'd been in a shelter, that I'd, come across, country from the East Coast, Southwest, and was trying to make a new start, and, blah, 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 blah. And I remember this woman was like, oh, well, here. And she invited me to her room there in the building, to her unit. And she had all these clothes, and she was like, here, let me just give you some clothes, because you're going to need some clothes for interviews and such and such. And me, her, and this a mutual friend went through her clothes, and she just, all these different things. Oh, you're going to look really good in that. And that's a really good color on you. And yes, you have long arms. And I think, I bought this, and I thought it would work, but the arms are too long. But here, I think the sleeves will work just great for you. Isn't that right? I mean, just the whole thing. And I can remember being a little suspicious of it, but I was grateful, because I didn't have hardly anything. And I was, wanting to try to, get work. And yeah, I would really need clothes for interviews. And so I accepted all of these clothes. Now, the following night, I started having these weird dreams where her and this woman were popping up in this dream. And it was the weirdest dream. Don't even ask me what the dream was about, because I can't even remember. I started to get it, that there was some type of a connection between gift giving and these people messing with me, which is what I used to say. I used to say there's people messing with me. I didn't know that it was called gang stalking. I didn't know that it was called targeting. I didn't know it was called adult bullying. I didn't know that it was called organized harassment. I had no idea. I just said these people were messing with me. And this was a case in point. I accepted the gift of all of these clothes. Okay, under the guise of, you're really in a really downward position right now, and let me help you out, and you're helping me out because I need to make room, and I've had these clothes for a while, I don't wear them anymore, and here you go. By all means, good luck. I hope things work out for you. That was the mask. That was the front. That was the surface. I take them. I go home. Within a day, by the next night, I'm having weird dreams. Strange dreams where this woman and her friend, and supposedly my new friend who introduced me to her, this is what they were doing. And I didn't quite get it. And I still don't. In the sense that I don't know what I guess it would have to be your intention, because I trust me, if I were to give somebody like an old copy of a comic book or just, I don't know, an old set of pencils that I'm not using anymore, ain't nothing gonna happen, because I ain't doing nothing. I don't have any intention. It would be literally just you want the comic book, I've read it a couple of times, I don't need it anymore, it really wasn't my favorite, yeah, you can have it, do whatever you want, and that's it, end of story. I don't have any, there's no to just fall back on a Matrix metaphor, there's no program, there's no sneaky program running in the background. Okay, I don't have any malware running in the background, but that's not the case for everybody, especially for individuals who are caught up, who are perpetrators and who are stalkers. They realize this, especially those who are doing this satanic spiritual attack, who are running that angle. Accepting something from them is there is an agreement. You're coming into agreement with them. I had more than a few incidents of accepting rides from people, and the same thing would happen. I'd all of a sudden start having weird, dreams, and then all of a sudden they're like kind of being really weird and, kind of creepy towards me, to the point that I just, cut off relationships. Yeah, I do need a ride from you in the mornings, but, I think I'll walk. Or I think maybe I'll just take some of my CDs and tapes and go down to Rasputin's or go to Amoeba Records and sell them back and see if I can get enough money for a 2-day pass or a 3-day pass. I mean, literally. I mean, I just became that phrase, beware of Greeks bearing gifts. I started taking that to heart, but these people weren't Greeks. It didn't have nothing to do with Greeks. Okay, it just had to do with cray-crays. Satanic, evil, gang-stalking cray-crays. But my point is, coming into agreement. Taking gifts from people is a form of coming into agreement. Accepting rides from people is a form of coming into an agreement. Getting into an argument with someone is coming into agreement. What are you agreeing to? You're agreeing to a fight. Okay, and that's what's on the surface. On the surface it's an agreement to a fight, but who knows what door it opens up, because you've basically given them permission to do whatever. You punching them, they're punching you. You're thinking that it's all surface, on the front, yeah, man, take this. What's up, Toma? Oh, you ain't got a problem with trading fists, throwing sets. And you're thinking that that's it. You've just come into agreement with something. When you have sex with someone, you're coming into agreement with someone. You are making a pact. You are making a covenant with someone. Sometimes shaking their hand, okay, is coming into agreement. These people, I mean, because there was the as one person said it, the enemy, the devil, is very legalistic, and he understands that that every human being has what is called free will. We have the right to choose. We have the right to choose. And so when someone offers their hand, some of us, the way we've been raised, we automatically accept the hand and shake it. And we think nothing of it. Oh, hey, how you doing? All right, you shake the hand. What are you doing today? I mean, that's all we're thinking. But they have some malware running in the background, and you have just, oh man, can you believe that? Do you see how insidious that is? And can you see why the danger of that type of behavior, that type of perspective, that type of thinking, that type of trickery is so deadly and dangerous during this holiday season? When you accept a Christmas card from someone, when you accept a Christmas invitation to a dinner party, when you accept a gift from somebody, when you're hanging out there and they're literally giving you something to drink, you're accepting that drink, there's two dangers. One is what literally on a physical level, what they done put in the drink, because there's that possibility. But two, on a spiritual level, what is it that you've come into agreement with? And then you wonder why when you go home that night, why you have weird dreams, and for the next 2 or 3 or 4 or 5 days or 5 weeks, things are just so weird and funny and hinky, and you can't quite put a finger on it, but every once in a while you have a flash and you think back to that party, to the person that gave you the funny look when they handed you the drink. I mean, that's, man. Okay, look, if you are a victim of this, gang stalking, and specifically this part of the targeting, where it's the satanic spiritual attacks, well then these podcast episodes are for you. Okay? And that's why instead of doing them just one a week, I decided, let me just do a couple of them, because this is on the real. This is the third one, and what you just heard was a part of a documentary looking at the Borgia family. Now, why the Borgia family? Something that I was thinking about a little while ago was, I tried to write it down. Let me see here. I wrote this down. Okay, and basically it went like this. It was just a question. If, basically, let me see here, my handwriting. Okay, if Santa, if Christmas is really a satanic holiday, then who is Jesus? Okay, notice I didn't say who is Yahushua. We know that Yahushua is the Hebrew Messiah, okay, who was the Son of the Most High, who is the Savior of the world, who is the Redeemer. He saves us from death. He saved us from sin. He redeemed us from death, okay? Now, we know who He is, but who is this Jesus? Who is this face that we see? We're given a name, Jesus. Now, okay, in the year 2018, it's Jesus, but that's a relatively new name. If you really look back through the history of Christianity and do your research, you know that is that the J wasn't even added to the English language. That J sound like just, jump rope, you know, or joy to the world. That J sound and the corresponding symbol J, that they were that was the last letter added to the English alphabet. And it was not even, if you can find a old Webster's dictionary, okay, I think the first dictionary where the J section was added was the 1800s. Okay, so that means that this name Jesus in English has only been on the earth amongst English-speaking Christians for a little over 200 years. That's all. So what were they calling the name of the Messiah in Gentile English-speaking countries before then? Well, we know that it was Jesus or Iesus, okay? And before that, and before that, okay, do you see what I'm saying? How this can, when you start to really look at this and question this, how it doesn't stop. It's this, right? I mean, can you? I hope you can understand that. So then the next question is, so who is this man we're looking at? They always provide, you know, they, our ecclesiastical leaders, our ecclesiastical fathers, they always provide a face to go with the name. Okay, because we're talking about, you know, paganism, and paganism is, as we know, that's idolatry. And remember, let me just share this with you one more time. When we go to the book of Jeremiah, Jeremiah chapter 10. I shared that verse where Jeremiah was telling the Hebrew Israelites that were being taken into captivity into Babylon. He was encouraging them and telling them, you know, passing on to them the words of the Most High. And what is the Most High told them? He said, learn not the way of the heathen. Okay, and then it goes into that description of the Christmas tree. But down in chapter 10, verse 8, it says, "But they are altogether brutish and foolish. The stock is a doctrine of vanities." And that word stock in Hebrew, in the biblical Hebrew, the classical Hebrew, it's in the Hebrew Concordance, the Strong's Concordance. It's number 6086, and the word is pronounced eitz, and it is tree. So the tree is a doctrine of vanities. And remember, I was talking about how it's an idol, because also that word eitz, it means tree, but it also means wood, it means timber, it means plank, and you get down to idol, because there's more wood, there's more trees, therefore there's more. During that time period, there were more idols made of wood than there were idols made of gold, and idols made of silver, and idols made of bronze or brass, and idols made of stone. That takes a lot more skill, that takes a craft, but it's a lot easier to go out into the woods to cut down a tree and to use I don't even know the names of the instruments that are used to shape wood, to carve wood, to shave it down, and to shape it into and to form it into a man or some type of a beast, and then set that up as an image. But that was something that was it's not that type of idolatry that they were dealing with in the ancient world. We don't deal with that as much here in 2018, in modern times, we're not dealing with it on that level. So to literally, like what I was sharing in that episode when I talked about this, and just read again what he had written in that letter at the end of the book of Baruch, chapter 6 in the Apocrypha, where he was literally spelling it out to using examples so that the people would understand that it is, even though it looks like a man, it's been shaped like a man, and they've got it so that the man is holding a dagger or is holding a sword. It's not a man, okay? It's a thing, it's an object, it's a piece of wood. It can't walk itself in and out of the rain. It can't feed itself. It can't, you know what I mean? So, but it's a stock, and it's saying that the stock, the tree, the wood, it's a doctrine of vanities. So one of the things that's still done to perpetuate that type of idolatry, they're giving us a false name, but they want a face connected to it. So the question is, we're looking at the fact that they're convincing us, they're trying to tell us, they've culturated us and tricked us for several centuries to think that we are on December 25th, that we're celebrating the birth of a man named Jesus. Okay, now, and we know that it's not the Hebrew Messiah. We know that it's not the Son of the Most High. Okay, I know this, and I'm really hoping that the majority of the people who will be listening to this episode of this podcast, that you will know this, that is not the Son of the Most High. So the question is, who is this? Seriously, who is this that we're worshiping? Whose birthday is it we're really worshiping? What's his name, and who's this face that goes with it? Well, we know that in English they're telling us now that his name is Jesus, and there's a face there. Who is that face? Who is this man that we have in our mind's eye when we think of the Christmas celebration? When we're told, they're going to do, we want you to come to the church service for the special Christmas service, because we're going to have, there's going to be a play. We're going to do a Christmas play, and the little neighbor boy Timmy, he's going to be one of the three kings, and Susie's going to be Mary, and Jose is going to be Joe, and we've got Malcolm, he's going to be one of the three kings. There's this whole thing. They do this whole thing, because I remember being a part of all that. And so the question is, who is this person? Okay, if this holiday has nothing to do with the Son of the Most High, with the Son of Elohim, what is this about? Who is this individual? Well, for us, 2018, we're told that this is Jesus. But we know, no, can't be Jesus, okay? Who's that face? Well, we start doing our research, And we know that that face that they usually use to accompany the name is an individual who really did exist, and his actual name is, in English, he's got a couple of different pronunciations for the name, but I mean, I guess the most accurate would be Cesare Borgia, or Cesare Borgia. That's an Italian name. They're actually a Spanish family, but he was the son of one of the popes, Pope Alexander VI. They lived in that area, which is now, Rome, Italy, and moving across into like Spain and France, all of that area right there along the Mediterranean. They were there the late 1400s. Let's see, I think the 1490s for sure. Okay, but that's who we're dealing with. We're talking about a man named Cesare Borgia, and his face, his likeness, his resemblance is what is used for the portraits that have been given to us for centuries, and we have his face in our mind's eye when we are praying at night. We have his face in our mind's eye when we are celebrating Easter, and we're reading different stories about, how he was crucified and they forced him to carry his own stake after being whipped, after being humiliated, and how they took him and they nailed him to the stake, and they lifted it up and propped it up and filled the hole with rocks and with dirt so that it would stay upright. And my ancestors stood around and taunted, and we're supposed to have in our mind's eye this man, Cesare Borgia. Yet we who are empowered individuals who want the truth, okay, because the Messiah, the real Messiah, Yahushua, HaMashiach, we know that he said that the truth will make you free. The truth will make you free. Free to do what? Free to make better choices around how you spend your money, how you spend your time, who and how you choose to worship. When you have the truth, okay, it can be freeing. I know that when I learned the truth about this gang-stalking, there was a freedom. And it's interesting. It was after, I've had this channel, Peculiar People, for a while. I had it for a while before I started doing videos, because I pretty much just used it as I had playlists, and I just watch videos and just leave comments, and that's really what it was for. I got a couple of channels like that. I never really thought about doing any videos, because I had done that in the past, and I knew just from these people who were quote unquote messing with me that my videos wouldn't get any views, that it was pointless. So for this channel I never did any videos. And then when I found out what this was called, and I started watching all these videos and getting all this information, and just pieces started falling into place, lo and behold, within a month to 2 months, I was doing videos. A chain or something, a heaviness had been lifted, and I felt emboldened enough, brave enough to start doing videos. And I had founded this ministry, artistic ministry, many years before, and I had been working on writing up the praises and putting them online, and putting my editorial comments, cartoons up, and just the comic strips, and moving forward. But now I'm definitely moving forward at a much faster pace. Why? Because that information freed me. Okay, because I don't know, it's really hard to put into words, but the Messiah is right. Master Yahushua is right. The truth shall make you free. So now, hopefully with this information that I've been sharing with you, and that I'm sharing with you in this podcast episode and the previous podcast episode and the one before that, that hopefully that information will free you enough so that when these little mischief makers and stalkers and targeteers come around wearing that benign mask, inviting you to some party, offering you some gift, okay, that you will have the wherewithal, that you will have the strength to simply say, oh, no, thanks, sweetie. You know what? I didn't get you a card. No, you keep the card. You know what? I'll just take it. I'll take it at face value. But you go ahead and you give it to somebody else, okay? I mean, be nice, make nice. Hey, this ain't about, I know what you're doing. No, I'm not going to take a gift from you. I'm not coming into agreement with you. We ain't got to be like that. You know, I mean, even though you might want to, even though you might be just raging inside, just fuming, as you're able to look through that mask and realize that this person's standing here cheesing, okay, putting a card up in front of you, you realize now, after everything that you've already known about them, that this is what they're doing. They are trying yet one more time to get you to come into agreement, to kick open that door, that spiritual door, so that they can then come in and put a curse on you. Okay, and do some wickedness and some foolishness to you. And if you accept that, if you accept their gifts, if you put up a Christmas tree, if you keep celebrating these holidays and being involved in these rituals, you are opening a door, giving them the legal right to torment and torture you some more. Okay, so yeah, you might be angry inside with this truth, okay, when you have it. But you know, we don't even want to give them the satisfaction, because anger, okay, you can come into agreement with some nonsense behind that too. So, don't even give them the anger. They ain't worth it anyways. Okay, and you know, the energy that you're using on the anger and getting into an argument and accusing them, that energy can be used for something else. You can take that energy and start doing your own videos and start spreading this and playing it forward. Okay, that's what you can do. Okay, but now, hopefully with this information, this will give you the strength, free up some of that trepidation, free up some of that energy that's been holding you back because of just the uncertainty and the confusion, you know, just the dilemma that you've been in and the emotional funk that you've been in for the past couple of days, for the past couple of weeks, maybe even going back to Thanksgiving, where people were going to parties and you were wanting to go too, and yet, you know, just feeling down in the dumps because Thanksgiving is another one where everybody's just so happy and eating good food and the family time and blah, 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 and yet you know that if you go, first of all, they might not even invite you anyway, and you want to be invited so bad that if they do, even though you know that some of the people there are dangerous, even though you know that you're setting yourself up for some heartache, and maybe even some physical aches, literally, and some spiritual attacks, but you're desperate enough, you're just sad enough, you just, you know, your resolve is just weak enough that you go ahead and do it anyways, and you set yourself up, okay? But now, with this information, you can literally say not only no, but hell no. Just, you know, as Brother Jacob would say, not only no, but hell no. There is no way you are getting me to come up into one of them churches to a church service to watch some Christmas little nativity over something where there is no truth in hardly any of that. No. And then the end result is opening a door for a spiritual attack? I don't think, no. But, you know, we don't say it like that. We just say, oh, no, thanks. You know what? I really appreciate the invitation, but, you know, I'm just on a different spiritual path, and I just don't really celebrate that. But thank you so much. That is so nice of you to offer, but thank you. And you keep it moving. Hopefully that is what these episodes will do, that it will give you the strength to decline and to just keep it moving. If you choose to do that, you know, if you feel emboldened enough, you know, or maybe you looking at this person and you realize that maybe the person who's doing the inviting, they might not even get it, because we know that many of these targeteers, definitely that are down on the streets, that are in the streets doing the street theater, that are actually being, you know, coerced and paid and tricked and manipulated into being our attackers, you know, not the ones who are drawing up the blueprints, okay? okay, and conducting the PowerPoint presentations when they're telling them the lies about us, not them guys, but the ones who they're lying to, and getting them to do this stuff, you might look at that person and realize they don't even know what they're doing. If they knew the truth, they wouldn't be going up into the church service to watch the play. They would not allow little Joey and little Susie and little Malcolm and little Jose to be a part of that if they knew the truth. So maybe you might find a way to let them know. Maybe you might say, I don't believe that. I don't really celebrate Christmas. I have a different belief system. And that might be enough right there. And they might say, really? Oh my gosh, I didn't know that. I thought, I always see you with your Bible, right? Because you are righteous T.I., and you know that this Bible is a sword. And you say, well, yeah, oh no, I definitely believe in the Bible. I definitely believe in the Messiah, but I just don't, Christmas. I've just really with all my studies and stuff now, I've just come to learn that, that's really, there's a lot of paganism. There's a lot of, believe it or not, there's a lot of Satanism. I mean, that might be an opportunity to have a conversation. I mean, that's what happens when you get the truth. There's all of a sudden you have some strength that you didn't know previously that you had. But seriously. So that's why I decided that I'm just going to do, instead of just doing one episode a week during this holiday season, I'm going to do more. And sometimes, I've said a couple of times I might even end up doing 12, as a way to refute and combat and counteract that whole pagan, Norse pagan 12 days of Christmas nonsense, where they're sitting up here 12 days in a row, burning a Yule log and sacrificing humans and animals 12 days straight. Can you believe that? Oh, man. See, when you start learning the truth, there's a strength. There's a zeal and a zest. There's a righteous indignation, and we can totally understand why the Messiah went up in there and threw those money changers out on their ear. Okay, we can totally understand that. But let me just share another scripture here with you. This is because seriously, because now I'm looking at another angle on this. Job chapter 9:24. The earth is given into the hand of the wicked. So if the earth is given into the hand of the wicked, and a good hefty percentage of the earth is a good hefty percentage of the people on the earth, not all, but a hefty percentage are Christians, and we know that these Christian holidays, that's really what's at the core of them is paganism, and what's at the core of paganism is Satanism. Then who is this man? Who is this man, and what is his name? Okay, you can't. Sooner or later, that's going to come up. So we know that this individual, I'll tell you in case you don't know. Like I said, his name is technically it's pronounced Cesare Borgia. Cesare Borgia. But we just say Caesar Borgia. We're English speaking. We ain't putting that much emphasis on it. He doesn't, to go out of the way to really pronounce this man's name is really just not that much. That's not important to me. And the reason I have this attitude is, again, when you know the truth, okay, when you see what they've done, when you see just how insidious and just how deep this rabbit hole goes, you will see that what they've done, even the name that they've chosen to give this false icon, and the person that they use to, using his portrait, his resemblance, when you see the truth behind, who this man really is, you will see that they are insulting the Most High, that they are thumbing their nose at the Messiah, and that's when it becomes even clearer that this is Satan, that this is Satanism, and these are Satanists who are doing this. It becomes very clear, and that's why I put that clip, that audio clip from the it's an episode from the History Channel on the notorious, I think it's history's most notorious families, and that one was specifically on the Borgia family. And so this episode, I'm going to just share some information about him, about this this individual, okay, so when you see these images, these Christians, the iconography that has inundated our family life, our personal life, our community life, our religious life, you will just see it will just, oh my gosh, I can't even find the actual words sometimes to describe just what it does, the feelings that are generated when I realize what it is that they've done. I mean, we know that the Messiah, that our Master and King, is the Son of the Most High. And as I said in the last episode, we know that he was the first being to come forth from the light, that during the creation, when our Heavenly Father said, let there be light, what's really, when you get an understanding, you realize that was the first appearance of the Son of the Most High, who came and walked on this earth, okay, amongst men, doing works, glorifying the Father, and then offering himself as a sacrifice, as a pure, innocent, perfect sacrifice, that his blood is so pure that it can heal all of mankind. It can cleanse, it can forgive, it can protect. That is how pure his blood is. Okay? Now, while he was here, he lived a life that was pure, that was based on charity, on spiritual justice, which poured over into social justice. He did not advocate violence on any level. And I believe that one of the reasons why was because he needed to be without spot, without blemish. That's why I think that he literally healed that guard, Malca? I forget what the Roman soldier's name, that centurion was, that they say that it was Peter who actually drew the sword and cut off his ear. Malchus, was that his name? I'm going to see if I can find it. I'll look for it while I'm talking. But why? Because that would have been a physical assault that was being committed basically not in his name but for him, and he couldn't have that. He couldn't have any taint, any blemish, none of that. So he admonished that disciple who did it, and then he healed him. Okay, now that's who we're talking about. This is someone who encouraged us to forgive our perpetrators, to forgive them. And he made it very clear in the Sermon on the Mount. Forgive them so that you can be forgiven. Okay? Now this is a Savior who was sent to save us from our sins, so that we can get salvation, so that we can get eternal life. This is someone who literally in one day on his own fed 5,000 people. And on another day, he fed 4,000 people. And the 5,000, the 4,000, those separate days, that's just the men that were there. So, because think about this. It said that there were men, women, and children, but just in counting the men, there were only 5,000 men. So if every man there was with a wife, okay, then that's another 5,000. And if, as a family, if they had maybe one or two children, that would be, do you get the number of people, the sheer number of people that he willingly fed? Okay? We're talking about upwards of 12,000 people. That could have been 12 to 13,000 to 15,000 people that he fed in one day. Now let's, I'm going to, again, I would like to read that, just how he did that, how he just fed those people. Now that is Can we say the same? Now, of course, there's people who, when they have maybe like a at soup kitchens where they do volunteer service and they give out Thanksgiving dinners, or they give out Christmas dinners. They might be able to say, hey, well, in one day, we could we've fed X number of people. So in this day and age, maybe that really wouldn't be that big of a deal. Maybe it wouldn't stand out. But if you stop and think, wait a minute, you on your own, one person by yourself, you took X number of loaves of bread, X number of fish, and you, through a miracle, extended literally the physical properties of those food items, and you on your own fed 5,000, 10,000 people, again, if we count the women, and if, again, that's if there were actually 5,000 women, with 5,000 men, but clearly more than 5,000 people were fed. There was just 5,000 men that we know of. But can you say that you've done that? That's who he was. We know that there were so many people that would come to him that sometimes he would have to just leave, to just go away, to spend time by himself. And that it said that he would see them coming, and it said that his heart would ache, because he realized that they were like flocks of sheep with no shepherd. Okay, and he would heal them. There were so many people that came at one time when he was in Peter's mother's house, that it said that the people that finally there were people that climbed up on the roof and removed the shingles so that they could lower the man that had palsy, so that they could lower his body down through the roof so that he could get healed. Okay, this is who he was. And he didn't say, oh, come on, y'all doing too much now. Come on now, put the shingles back up, man. Just go outside and wait your turn. Why y'all gotta be like that, man? Dang. No, he didn't have that attitude. He was, if anything, he was moved by their faith. He was moved. No, this is who the Messiah, this is who came. Okay, this is what he did. He was so powerful and so loving that, remember the woman who came and just touched the hem of his garment? Okay, and he knew that he sensed that some of his energy had been taken. Okay, and he turned and he was like, hey, somebody just touched me. And they were like, whoa. That's how could you even know that? How could you even feel that? But he knew. And check this out. This is what it says. It says, and behold, a woman which was diseased with an issue of blood 12 years came behind him and touched the hem of his garment. For she said within herself, if I may but touch his garment, I shall be whole. But Yahushua turned him about, and when he saw her, he said, daughter, be of good comfort. Thy faith hath made thee whole. And the woman was made whole from that hour. He called her daughter. Okay? He didn't go, well, man, come on now. Come on. Why y'all gotta be touching me? Y'all too close, man. I'm gonna heal you. Why just wait your turn? No, he didn't do nothing like that. He didn't say, wait your turn. No, he just turned, he said, daughter, thy faith hath made thee whole. Man, okay, this is who we're talking about. Now, I've just shared that little bit right there. Let me see if there's one more part that I talked about, where he had fed them the 5,000, where he fed the 5,000 people. But what I wanted to share was just why he did it. And this is where we're talking about the mysteries. See, I start talking and I lose my place, and then I can't find it. Okay, but the reason he did it was he saw them, that they had been with him. He had been with them and his disciples for X number of days. And he was just like, they've been here. They haven't had any food. They're gonna be hungry. They're gonna need to eat. And the disciples were like, well, feel bad about that, but what are we supposed to do? We can't. We ain't got nothing. We ain't got enough for them. Okay, and so he started, and it says that he basically started asking them, because basically he was just going to test them, because he already knew what he was going to do. And it's in here's one in one narrative of it. It's in St. Mark chapter 8. It says, in those days the multitude being very great and having nothing to eat. Okay, Yahushua called his disciples unto him. Okay, so he realized that they had been with him. It said that the multitude was great. And he realized that they had nothing to eat. And he saith unto them, I have compassion on the multitude, because they have now been with me 3 days and have nothing to eat. Okay, they wouldn't leave. That shows the condition that these people were in, that the leadership, of the temple leaders, these elders, these high priests, they weren't even taking care of these people. Okay, and I'm not talking about the food. Clearly, they could have, if they had all they had to do was leave and go into some of the outlying villages and such, and they could have been taken care of. But I'm talking about spiritually, they clung to him. Okay, they wouldn't leave. Okay, and he says, and they've been with me for 3 days and have nothing to eat. And if I send them away fasting to their own houses, they will faint by the way. For divers of them came from far. I mean, he realized this. Okay, this was a man that had compassion. Now check this out. And his disciples answered him, From whence can a man satisfy these men with bread here in the wilderness? And he asked them, How many loaves have ye? And they said, 7. And he commanded the people to sit down on the ground, and he took the 7 loaves, and gave thanks, and brake, and gave to his disciples to set before them, and they did set them before the people. And they had a few small fishes, and he blessed, and commanded to set them also before them. So they did eat, and were filled. And they took up the broken meat that was left, 7 baskets, and they that had eaten were about 4,000, and he sent them away. Okay, that's the feeding of the 4,000 right there. And look at why he did that. He did that for them, because he had compassion for them, because they were there for him. He had what they needed, and they were in such need that they wouldn't even leave for 3 days. I mean, they weren't eating for 3 days. Now, see, for those of us who are fasting, who are learning to fast, and to abstain from food, we've reached the point, many of us, where we can go, of our own accord, okay, without food for 3 days. Okay, we can do that. But this was a situation. These were, again, like with the, if I can find the one where he fed the 5,000, they said it was 5,000, and that was not counting the women and children. Children not eating for 3 days. I mean, this is, come on, man. But he did that. Okay, now that's who the Messiah is. Okay, and there's more. We know just the different ways that he healed people, how Gentiles would come up to him, people that were in those controversial positions of authority, the centurion, the fellow who had who was in charge, who had compassion on the Yehudim, and he had built them a synagogue, even though he wasn't really a part of that, and they had need, and they would send their servants and say, Master, my master, he has a servant that's really sick, and he's one of his favorite servants, and he's dying. Could you come? Could you help him? I mean, this is how his name had spread. okay, as to because of what he had done, and just the ridicule that he had to put up with, and being stalked and being targeted. He could have, considering who he is and the power that he had, he could have done some serious damage to some of those scribes, to some of those high priests, or to the high priest, or to the different Pharisees and Sadducees if he had chosen to. But he didn't. He didn't do that because he understood, he had to forgive them. He was there to glorify the Father. He was there to literally to save and rescue the souls that the Most High had given him. This is how we know this is a family business. Okay? The Father had souls, and he gave some to his Son. Okay? This is it's really beautiful when you really look at who he is and what was really going on. And yet this isn't what's talked about during Christmas. Okay, in many instances, in the majority of instances, it's not. There's a set time period that's talked about, and there's a lot of, we question a lot about it. We question the time of year. We question, these, like the supposed the wise men, how many of them there were. I mean, there's just a lot that's just not, that we just don't really, we're not really sure about. But check this out. So, one of the things that I do, research, and I have this book that I want to, I got it a while back, and I used it just in some of my research and some of the just different articles and such that I've read, that I'm writing, just working on just different projects and stuff. And this one is a book. It's called, let me get the right title, because I want to also give you the author, because you're to just encourage you to, if you ever get a chance to check this book out, or to check out one of your own. You can literally just Google the name Cesare Borgia or Cesare Borgia. Okay, but this book is called The Artist, the Artist, the Philosopher, and the Warrior: The Intersecting Lives of Da Vinci, Machiavelli, and Borgia, and the World They Shaped. Now, the reason it's called The Intersecting Lives is because during this time period, this was in the Renaissance, the beginning of the Renaissance. This was, and we know that they were contemporaries. We know that, let's see if I can pronounce his name right, Niccolo Machiavelli wrote The Prince, and many of the exploits of Cesare Borgia is what he drew upon when he created this character. And we know that Borgia was also a contemporary of Da Vinci, that a lot of the military, the weaponry, and just some of the different, engineering projects, the sketches and such that Da Vinci drew up, that he was inventing, that he had shared them with Cesare Borgia. And Borgia, actually, there's one part in this book where it talks about Borgia, when he began to conquer some of the different city-states that were in that area of the Mediterranean, when he wanted to fortify the walls, when he wanted to create some of the weapons and such, that he actually referred, and conferred with Da Vinci. So that's why it means they're the intersecting lives, because they were contemporaries and they had contact with each other. And so basically in this book I have, this one I have a copy. It's on Kindle, so I can, because I want to just read from it. Basically it gives a very clear idea as to who he was, just his emotional makeup, and just some of the different scandals that he was involved in, just his mindset and the way he interacted with people. And this is the individual. The reason I'm even sharing this is this is the individual who the quote-unquote powers that be chose to use to represent the Messiah. Okay? This man's image is in the minds of many Christians across the world, and even in the minds of many non-Christians. You can take a picture of a painting of Cesare Borgia, okay, when he's, in the Roman robes and such, made to, painted and rendered to look like who they believe, is the Messiah. You can take that to a non-pagan culture, to a non-pagan people, and hold it up and ask them and say, who is this? And chances are, 9 out of 10, they're going to say, oh, well, that's Jesus, or that's Jesus. They're going to know who that is. That is how widespread and how popular they've made Cesare Borgia, okay, and how they were successfully able to link him, to tie him to the life, the ministry, the crucifixion, the resurrection of the Messiah. So I'm just going to read some of the parts here, just a few paragraphs about Borgia, okay? Just to kind of to show you what it is, who this man is, and while you're listening to this, think if you really feel okay with the fact that this is the man who's in the mind's eye of your family, friends, and loved ones who don't know that this is not the Messiah. Okay? They don't know that the Hebrew Messiah, okay, who died for the sins of the righteous, they don't know that he's black. They don't know that the Hebrew Israelites are that they are African. They don't know this. Okay, now just listen to this. Okay, this is a brief verse or from the introduction. It says, Borgia has become a byword for monstrous deeds, his very name summoning up images of betrayal, murder, and depravity. Here was a man who acted on impulse, who judged people intuitively with a cunning, almost animal acumen. He was a savage, but he was also a man of the Renaissance, a highly educated savage, a brilliant mind utterly attuned to its basest instincts. Okay, page 6. Borgia, for his part, had ambitions to carve out his own personal kingdom in the Romagna, the first step in a grandiose dream of uniting Italy and returning it to the glories of the Roman Empire. Not for nothing did he adopt a motto featuring his classical namesake, either Caesar or nothing. As a result, Machiavelli would make Cesare Borgia the hero of his notorious work The Prince, which shocked the world, revolutionized political thinking, and would ultimately transform humanity's view of itself. Okay, here's another one from page 63. Borgia was a man of considerable guile, daring, and psychological acumen. However, his reputation as a fearsome military commander was based more on his ability to move at speed and catch his enemy by surprise, often by means of treachery, than on any valor in battle. On the other hand, his reputation in other fields was richly deserved and owed little to exaggeration. His behavior was often that of an inhuman monster. In both his depravities and his pursuit of his vast ambitions, he would stop at nothing. Yet he was also, like Leonardo and Machiavelli in their own very separate ways, a superb exemplar of the Renaissance man. Charismatic and handsome in his youthful prime, highly intelligent and well-versed in the classics, he would cut a superb figure in the courts of Italy and France when he put his mind to it. Here was a man who could be as magnetic in his charm as he could be terrifying in his evil. Page 82. But there may possibly have been another reason for Carlotta's rejection. When the 23-year-old Cesare had been leaving Rome, the Minucian ambassador had noted, quote, "He is well enough in countenance at present, although he has his face blotched beneath the skin as is usual with the great pox." Cesare's libertine behavior had led him to catch syphilis, which would one day cause him to wear a mask. Fortunately for him, this initial disfigurement seems to have cleared up on his long journey to the French court, as was usually the case with this early stage of the disease. Even so, it is possible that his prospective bride gained news of these unattractive symptoms. Page 86. The fiery Caterina now became the prisoner of the 24-year-old Cesare Borgia. This inevitably led to all manner of salacious gossip. According to the contemporary Venetian diarist Marino Sanuto, Duke Valentino Borgia was keeping the said lady, who is a most beautiful woman, day and night in his room, with whom, in the opinion of all, he is taking his pleasure. Some sources claim that he raped her. Others, noting her notorious appetite for younger men, suggested that force may not have been necessary. Either way, these two inflammatory characters were to spend quite some time in each other's close company until suddenly Borgia's campaign was halted in its tracks. Page 88. Despite Cesare's happiness, he remained a troubled character, especially where Lucrezia was concerned. By now her husband Alfonso, Duke of Bisceglie, had returned to live with his wife and their newborn child. Alexander VI and Cesare appeared to welcome this development, and Alfonso was even invited to take part, as representative of his father, the King of Naples, in Cesare's triumphant entry into the city after his successful campaign in the Romagna. However, on the evening of June 15th, Alfonso was attacked on the steps leading up from the piazza to St. Peter's by a group of masked men with daggers. According to Bouchard, he was gravely wounded in his head, right arm, and leg, while his assailants escaped down the steps. Alfonso managed to stagger into the Vatican and was carried up to the papal apartments, where a shocked Alexander VI ensured that his personal physician gave all possible medical assistance to his son-in-law. When Lucrezia saw her husband covered in blood, she collapsed. Next day, word of this sensational assassination attempt spread quickly through Rome, and Alfonso's close friend Raphael Brandolinas, the Florentine-born humanist scholar, wrote in a letter, "Who hired these assassins remains unknown. However, I dare not write down the names of those who are suspected of this deed, as it is dangerous to commit such things to paper." The Pope himself was strongly suspected by many. His strategy was now linked to France, and the Borgias had no need or wish for any ties with Naples, but the chief suspect was certainly Cesare, whose attitude towards anyone who loved his sister remained deeply conflicted. Page 91. But then he noted Cesare's darker side, reporting news of the ulcer that Cesare was suffering from in his groin, a recurrent symptom of his syphilis, and how he was known to be hard in revenge. He also described how Cesare was in the habit of conducting his business by night, receiving emissaries as he sat in the dark, with candlelight behind him illuminating their faces and his own face in shadow. Page 94. That autumn, the Borgias would excel themselves, building upon the already solid foundations of their infamous legend. The Borgia household in the Vatican now included an unexplained 3-year-old male child called Giovanni, widely referred to as the Infant Romanus. Many suspected that this child was an illegitimate offspring of Lucrezia and Alexander VI's beloved Spanish manservant Perotto, whose body ended up in the Tiber, almost certainly dispatched by Cesare. The Pope now issued a public bull legitimizing this child, declaring him to be the offspring of Cesare and an unmarried woman. At the same time, Alexander VI issued a private bull naming himself as the father. Both of these bulls were almost certainly untruthful, although Lucrezia was probably the mother. Under the circumstances, one can hardly blame the anonymous contemporary correspondent who wrote, "Cesare murdered his brother, slept with his sister, spent the treasure of the church, and was the terror of his father Alexander." Rumors of incest between Alexander VI, Cesare, and Lucretia seem only too understandable. Although it is difficult to ascertain the truth, further notorious events during the coming autumn would seem to suggest, at the very least, an element of unconscious incestuous feelings between the father, son, and daughter. Page 95. Such family entertainment for father and daughter appears as harmless fun compared to the way Cesare chose to entertain his sister when he used an enclosed courtyard of condemned men as target practice with his crossbow. On the occasion when a Roman satirist alluded to Cesare's depraved behavior, he had his tongue cut out and nailed to his severed hand. Okay, and that's just page 95. There's another part in here. It's going to be, I think, probably the last part that I'll read, but it pretty much it confirms again just some of what's already been what they've just been talking about just how the family was just some of the just some of the rumors that were said about them, that in terms of just the depravity that would lead to some, to him ending up getting syphilis, and just, I don't know. This is someone who, again, the idea that that he would, I don't know, that they would use him as the face of the Messiah. I don't know. But here's the last one that I'm going to read, and then I just wanted to share some of the some more audio clips. Okay. This is okay. On Sunday evening, October 30th, Don Cesare Borgia gave a supper in his apartment in the Apostolic Palace with 50 decent prostitutes or courtesans in attendance, who, after the meal, danced with the servants and others, first fully dressed and then naked. Chestnuts were strewn about, which the prostitutes, naked and on their hands and knees, had to pick up with their vaginas. The Pope, Don Cesare, and Donna Lucretia were all present to watch. Finally, prizes were offered to those men who bleeped these prostitutes the greatest number of times. The Borgias enjoyed sex as a spectator sport, which seemed to act as a form of bonding. Bouchard recorded another incident that took place on November 11th. Alexander VI and Lucretia were looking out of a window and noticed two mares with winter wood strapped to their backs being led by a peasant through the gate beside the Vatican. When the mares reached St. Peter's Square, the Vatican guards were ordered to cut their straps, throw off the wood, and lead the mares into the courtyard immediately inside the palace gate. 4 stallions were then freed from the palace stables. They immediately ran to the mares, over whom they proceeded to fight furiously and noisily amongst themselves, biting and kicking in their efforts to mount them and seriously wounding them with their hooves. The Pope and Donna Lucretia, laughing with evident satisfaction, watched all that was happening from a window above the palace gate. Okay, so again, this is a description of this man's family and of himself, and they used his likeness, okay, in paintings that in many Bibles you will find pictures as inserts, okay, to further solidify the idolatry and to further solidify this man's image as being connected with the Messiah, Yahushua HaMashiach, Yahushua the Messiah, okay? Now, can you see how insulting that is to do that? That is a way of just thumbing their nose at the real Hebrew Messiah and what he did? That they would use someone who was the exact opposite. Okay, never in any of the narratives in any of the 4 Gospels, 4 different accounts of his life written by 4 different people for 4 different purposes, do you have any description of him having any type of sexual depravity of any kind? None whatsoever. Nowhere do you have any account of him treating any human being in the way that Cesare Borgia treated other people. Let me just read this one part to you one more time. Such family entertainment for father and daughter appears as harmless fun compared to the way Cesare chose to entertain his sister when he used an enclosed courtyard of condemned men as target practice with his crossbow. He did that as entertainment for his sister, who clearly he had some type of just psychotic infatuation over, okay? To entertain her, he set up men, condemned men, okay, and used them as target practice with his crossbow, okay? On the occasion when a Roman satirist alluded to Cesare's depraved behavior, he had his tongue cut out and nailed to his severed hand. Okay, somebody said something he didn't like. He got the man, had them cut out his tongue and nail it to his hand. How many times do we know of, okay, where the Messiah, where people literally stalked him and tried baiting him and getting him in conversations so that they could twist and turn him, using the gaslighting to use his words against him, so that they could then go out and tell people, see, he's mad, he has a demon, he's working with Beelzebub. You know, that's the only reason he's able to cast out demons. He's working with the father of demons. I mean, doing all that stuff, but never do you hear of him retaliating and grabbing one of them and taking them down and cutting off their tongue and doing something like that. They chose this guy to represent my master, my savior, my redeemer? Hopefully you can understand why. Oh man, see, this is the part where it gets a little hard to talk about, because to me it would seem obvious, and I know for some of you it is too. Okay, and they could have chosen anyone. They could have chosen an unknown, anonymous farmhand, okay? Someone who took the cows down to be watered, you know, or, I mean, they could have chosen anyone, but you choose him. You see how this is the exact opposite, that he would choose people who clearly, okay, would be children of disobedience, who clearly, you know, are up in the, you know, the upper class when it comes to being in the kingdom of darkness. Okay, I mean, see, I don't know how many times I can say it, so I'm going to leave it alone. But I decided to do that with this episode, that I would focus on him, because that's really what this is about. And when you look at it from this perspective, then it's possible to see why this season is more wicked. This time period is more, it's colder. Again, in the last episode, that brother, how he explained how this is when you start getting towards the 25th, and you know that you're looking at the longest, the shortest amount of daylight, but the longest amount of night, and how this is the time period. This is where these days is when the pagans are able to, they do a lot of their I guess their most serious and most, you know, darkest and deadliest rituals and such. And this is who this guy Cesare Borgia and his family, they fit right in with this. You see how this is all in keeping, how it all lines up? I mean, surely you can see this. And now you can, if you can see that, then can you see why we would not want to have anything to do with that? If you are really do not want to be a victim of these perpetrators and these targeteers, okay, these stalkers, and you want to try to keep yourself away from it as much as possible, You don't want to have any type of association with any of this. You don't want to open up any door to allow any of this sickness to come in, because I'm sure for some of these people who are caught up in some of this sickness, for them to have this guy in their mind's eye, they don't have a problem with it at all. Okay, they probably would not. Because remember, we're talking about people who are able to break into old women's homes, steal their dogs, and kill them and leave them on the doorstep for them to find. Okay, that's who we're talking about. I think I shared with you I heard this on a video about a young woman who had, as a teenager, as a young teen, she had been a victim of sexual assault. And she had, been able to get therapy and do a lot of recovery. And as a woman, she, was fine. But for some reason, somehow, I don't know, her name ended up on one of these lists, and they started stalking and targeting her through identity theft, through just hacking into her, her computer or whatever. They found that out about her, that she had been a victim of an assault, and apparently during the assault, they had the fellows who had done it. They had stuffed a sock in her mouth, and so one of the things that these sick stalkers did when they were messing with her as part of their street theater, she was walking down the street one day, and from a car they threw socks at her. I mean, just who does that? Okay, this. But can you see how that type of person with that type of psychotic emotional landscape would be drawn to this season, to this holiday season? And how these are the individuals who are out there. These are the individuals who are running. These are that have weird psychotic programs running in the background that might come up to you with a smile on their face and invite you to something. And don't be surprised if the sickest one is the one inviting you to the church play, who's inviting you to come help decorate the Christmas tree. Okay, we would be tempted to think that the real sicko psychos, okay, that are probably like this guy Cesare Borgia, they would be the ones who would probably want to invite us to the after hour party. Okay, the Christmas party at work has ended and they still want to keep the party going, so they're the ones that would invite us to go to the bar. They're the ones who would slip the drink, put the Mickey, in the drink. No. Probably, but also, let's keep in mind, being realistic about this, these are probably individuals who are working as ushers in the church. These are probably the ones who are leading the choir. These are probably the ones who helped write some of the music for the play. Okay, that's who these people are. Okay, they are in every facet of this. They have infiltrated many of these Christian churches, and they are up in there. They are treating those innocent, unsuspecting members as fodder. They are fodder for their altars. Okay, that's who's up in there. And for us to have anything to do with that is a bad move. That's the wrong thing to do. That's the wrong thing to do. You would be better off staying at home, watching old reruns of LA Law. Okay, that would be better than kicking it with these cray-crays. Okay, but I'm gonna leave it at that. I'm just gonna play some of these other audio clips as to who this guy is, and I'm going to try to, if I can remember, to post the links so that you can just, so that you can have them if you want to refer back to them. If you feel like, sharing this with someone else, or if you want to just watch the entire videos, because all of these are just the audio clips from I think one or two. I think it's just going to be the one. It's from a video. Let me open that up here. From a historian named George Stuart, and it is basically what he does is the actual video is only 34 minutes long, But what he does is it was part of a presentation where he had some individuals dress up like the Borgia family, and there was a whole activity, and they came in, the Borgias, quote unquote, came and sat in the front row. And so when you're listening to this, he's giving the information, but he's doing it in a way where there's some humor involved in it, and you'll hear him saying, "You remember that, don't you, Alexander? Or you remember that church today? That was your brother-in-law." So he's referring to these people in the front row, and it's kind of just kind of a lighthearted way to talk about some really, just who these sick people are. Now you can see with what I've just read why he would want to try to keep it light and and on the kind of humorous side, because it is so sick and twisted. But these are just, it's not going to be the entire. It's not going to be the entire video, but it's just going to be a few snippets, and I'm going to put them on and let you listen to that, and try to include the links, but refer back to these. Okay, if you have a testimony and a love and an appreciation and a respect and just reverence for what the Messiah, what he did for us through his life, through his ministry, through the example that he left for us, that is still here to inspire us, to encourage us, okay, to guide us, and just a love and a respect for what he did on a spiritual level, living his life in such a way, dying in such a way that we can have an opportunity through grace and through mercy to get eternal salvation, which is what we want. After the life that I've lived, having to put up with this type of sick, twisted craziness, the idea of living this out again for eternity is not something that I would want to do. And now that I know that I have a choice and I have a way to make a better choice and get eternal life, that's what I want. Because I don't forget the fact that the wicked, these children of disobedience, they're going to get eternal. They're going to be alive forever too. The difference is they're going to be dealing with eternal condemnation. They're going to be dealing with eternal wrath. Okay, in order to deal with that, in order to experience that, they're going to be alive too. So it's not that they're going to die, but it's going to be so intense that it's called a second death. Okay, that if I might be wrong on that, but if I am, somebody please feel free to correct me. And I know some of my enemies are going to be probably the first ones to leave some type of a condescending comment. But I think that is the real difference. We're going to be alive. The righteous are going to be alive too, but we're going to get life. We're going to be in a place of glory, in a place of victory. Okay, where it's going to feel like life, and what they're going to be dealing with is so intense, it's going to be like death. Okay, but my point is, why would I want, after everything that I've dealt with, that I'm still dealing with on a regular basis, why would I, knowing that there's a difference, knowing that there are choices, knowing what those choices are, why would I choose the opposite and set myself up to suffer this again and to suffer even worse forever? Why? There's just no way.
By the year 1497, many believed that Pope Alexander VI was defiling the sanctity of the Catholic Church. Some even claimed that he was a cold-blooded murderer who had annulled his own daughter's marriage in order to continue their sexual affair. Seemingly unconcerned by these rumors, Alexander hungered for even greater power. In order to strengthen his position, he planned a military campaign that would subdue the hostile city-states of Italy and hold an invading French army at bay. Alexander thought he knew just the man to lead this onslaught. He summoned back from Spain his favorite son, Juan Borgia. Quite unwittingly, the Pope had set the stage for a murder mystery. For Alexander's other son, Cesare, who had always seethed under the favoritism he believed was shown to his brother, now was certain that he had been unfairly passed over as the one to lead his father's army. Jealousy was inflamed into dangerous fury when Juan began to pursue the passionate Sancha of Aragon, who was none other than Cesare's mistress. It was only weeks after Juan's return to Rome that the brothers dined at their mother's house in the Piazza Pizzo di Merlo. After the meal, Juan and Cesare bid their mother good night and disappeared down a darkened street. The next afternoon, a fisherman pulled the mangled corpse of Juan out of the Tiber River. The following day, his eyes red and swollen from weeping, the Pope addressed a solemn assembly of his cardinals.
The blow which has fallen upon us is the heaviest that we possibly could have sustained. We loved Juan more than anyone else in the world. We would give 7 tiaras to be able to recall him to life. God has done this in punishment for our sins. Pope Alexander VI, 1487.
For the first time in his life, the Pope was filled with a sense of foreboding. Deep in his heart, he feared the unspeakable, that his own diabolic acts had finally come back to haunt him.
It is certainly a story of people wanting to hurt, to strike at the very heart of Alexander's empire. There was nothing more insulting than defaming the body of a corpse, and to have the son of a pope, in fact, the favored son of a pope, thrown into the river like a carcass, washed up on the shore.
But the killer may not have been an enemy of Pope Alexander. He may have been an enemy of Juan. The killer may have been Juan's own brother, Cesare.
Many historians have pointed out, and Guicciardini first among them, that Cesare Borgia had a motive to kill his brother because he was jealous of him, jealous of his station, jealous of his future.
The Pope, however, refused to consider that Cesare might be guilty. Perhaps he was simply unable to.
Fortunately, when Alfonso was living in the Vatican Palace with his new bride, Cesare became envious. Cesare was viciously envious of anybody that took an interest in his sister. He was so jealous. And he and his brother-in-law Alfonso had fisticuffs on 2 occasions, recorded here. On the 3rd occasion, he stabbed Alfonso and almost killed him. At that point, Alfonso fled back to Naples, for a family to take care of him. Lucrezia went with him. His Holiness said, no, I don't want my family separated. Alfonso is perfectly safe here. I'll see to Cesare. He insisted that they come back to Rome. He would give them every protection possible. And Cesare would be held in check. Your Holiness, do you remember that argument? All right, they did. They came back to Rome, into the Vatican Palace. Alfonso was recovering from his wounds. Lucrezia and your sister-in-law, Alfonso's sister, had come with him, were seeing to his every need, not leaving him for an instant, preparing the food for him themselves. One day, as Lucrezia sat by her husband's bedside, a messenger came dashing in saying, "His Holiness is ill, he needs you right away, come, come." In a panic, "Where's her sister-in-law? She was out, where?" She ordered the guards to guard the door, don't let anybody in, not a soul. She rushed off to the Pope's apartments, burst in on him. You remember that, when she came bursting in? And you said, "I am delighted to see you, my dear." And she said, "But you've summoned me." And the Pope said, "I didn't summon you, but you're welcome." Lucrezia realized what had happened, rushed back to her apartment. The door had been broken open. Her husband lay dead, smothered under his pillows. Well, everybody knew the cause of this. Cesare, your history was too well known. Everybody came to the same conclusion. And you bragged about it. You bragged about it in a drunken party held not long afterwards. You were impervious, you felt. Well, this was very difficult. To follow Lucrezia one more time, after that devastating experience, these were military campaigns. He was successful for the greater part. Every time he approached some citadel, some guarded city, fortified citrus area, then he had a choice, or the people inside had the choice, actually. They could open their doors to him and welcome him, or they could close and bar the doors, and a siege would be waged against them. Every time a community or a town or a city opened their gates, Cesare marched in, took over, and was a very able administrator. He was reasonably just in the light of those times, and people fared well under his rule. But should a town or a city resist, bar their gates to him, and he had to lay siege to them, they would eventually fall to the siege. And their gates would be broken in, and he would march in and take over. Every single person in authority of that town or village or city, their wives, children, and relatives would be butchered after terrible torture. This was quite a lesson. Only one or two of these had to take place, and everybody was opening their doors. And he began to round up a sizable group of cities that comprised, as they say, the Romagna. And the papal family decided to move to the countryside, out down to the south on the seacoast, to get the fresh air. And they did. At least the Pope and his son Cesare did. And while they were there, one evening after a banquet, both the Pope and Cesare fell desperately ill. Of course, there was a rumor that somebody had poisoned them. Well, the rumor was further that they were going to poison their host and drank his wine instead of their own. But that doesn't bear witness and didn't happen. They were ill from fever. The Pope was rushed back to the Vatican, followed by his son Cesare, both bedridden. And 6 days later, His Holiness died. Cesare was now in a shape to do nothing. He was in a high fever in his own bed. Immediately a conclave was called. Conclaves always had to take place immediately on the death of any reigning pope. And there was a fearsome battle as to who would be the next pope. Every major family had one of their cardinals there in the curia, fighting for them, and it wasn't going to work out. Riario della Rovere was the major opponent of the Borgias. He'd been out of town for years. Now he was back, but they couldn't agree. They could not agree as to who should be the Pope. So they settled on a compromise. Nice old gentleman of 83, very frail. He would last long enough for them to sort out their differences, they thought. He was elected as Pope Pius III. Well, the minute Cesare heard of this, he pulled himself together and got out of his sickbed and went before the newly elected Pope, threw himself at the feet of Pius III and pled for mercy for the Borgia family, to be protected from their enemies. Well, old Pius said, of course. Pius, you remember him. He helped you in your election, Your Holiness. So he had an affinity for the Borgia family. And he said, of course I'll protect you. And so Cesare went on in his campaigning as Cantigliore as soon as he was able. But 28 days later, Pius died. Another conclave had to be called immediately. And this time, the war between candidates was bought by Guglielmo della Rovere, the Borgia's enemy. Well, he went under the title of Julius II. And he told the existing Cesare Borgia, still the warrior for the Vatican, to continue his campaigns, and he would be fine. But Cesare was suspicious of this, and soon found out that Julius II was out secretly rounding up Borgia relatives and murdering them. So he fled to Naples. Cesare fled to Naples for protection. That was an odd choice. Naples was a satrap of Spain. Cesare had a widowed sister-in-law, the widowed Duchess of Gandia, who was a great favorite of Queen Isabella. And the two women, Queen Isabella, the Duchess of Gandia, Juan's wife, or widow, decided to extradite Cesare to Spain for murder of his brother Juan. So he was yanked across the sea to the Spanish prison of Chinchilla in 1504. And there he languished. But in the middle of all of this, as they were preparing for his trial, Queen Isabella died. Well, it was a joint rule, so this was a very complex government to sort out as a result. And in the hugger-mugger over that, Cesare escaped the Chinchilla. And he made his way north through Spain to Navarre. Remember Navarre? Your brother-in-law is the king of Navarre. Do you remember him? You'd married his sister. Remember her? Well, the king of Navarre was only too happy to have a great and renowned warrior and general in his tow. They were always fighting with the Spanish, so they went to work doing just that for the next couple of years. The war continued there at the border, and then in 1507, around the town of Vienna, one night before dawn, Cesare left his war tent without rousing his servants, without donning his armor, saddled his own horse, and with only sword and buckler rode out into the dark of the battlefield. He was never seen again alive. The following day, after the fighting had stopped, they found his body stripped of everything, covered with slashes and wounds, but recognizable. Why had he done this? What had possessed him? He was only 31. Now, even though Machiavelli did not know what some of the future people knew about illnesses of this nature, Machiavelli did state that after the arrival back from the New World of what's-his-face, he brought with him a gift of the Indies, the pox. Later ages would call it syphilis, my children, syphilis. You're all familiar with that, surely.
Then you can't lead the way, for it wouldn't be right for the blind to lead the wise. So hold on tight, my brother, and never ever you give in, for it won't be long till the wise lead the blind. Hold on tight, my brother, and never ever you give in, for it won't be long, no it won't be long, till the wise lead the blind. Calling on all the wise sons, you know it's get together time. I say, hey my brothers all, wherever you may be, come start living right. Give I strength, oh Jah, I have need to be free from this here captivity. Release the chains that bind man here in earth. Set I free, oh Lord, Jah Jah. Set man free, free. Brothers, and never ever you give in, for it won't be long till the wise lead the blind. Calling on all the wise sons, you know it's get together time. I say, hey my brothers all, wherever you may be, come start living right. Give I strength, oh Jah, I have need to be free from this here misery. Release my love here amongst men, oh Jah Jah please. This earth is thirsty, oh Jah Jah, and it has a need.